just put on a happy mask. We go to work, we put on a happy mask, and how are you doing today? And that's not the issue. We have to go to the deep within to figure out what's going on.
And welcome back to the Practical Shaman podcast. I'm Renee Baribeau, your host, Hay House author of Winds of Spirit. And today I'm really fortunate to have with me, we call ourselves Windies, a fellow Windy. Her name is Valorie Prahl. And Dr. Prahl is the newly published author of Body Messengers. And she is a Doctor of Chiropractic and a certified clinical nutritionist, and has been active in her practice for over 37 years. So I'm sure she's going to have lots of wisdom to share with us today. In addition to caring for patients, she served on various boards, including the Iowa Board of Chiropractic for 9 years and the Board of Iowa Chiropractic Society for 15 years. So we gather you're from Iowa here, and
Yes,
she understands how people get ill and how they can progress to health. And over the past several years, Dr. Val has been learning and exploring ancient healing arts and shamanic practices, as well as wind work, as well as the latest genetic information and brain science research on the mind and mindfulness. So welcome to the Practical Shaman Show. And it's nice to be sitting here with you a little bit differently and seeing you as like an author. I mean, how does that feel?
It's so exciting. It was just a thrill to have the book. And after all these years, I mean, it probably took me 4 or 5 years to write. So it was just it was a work of love and a work of it was just a work of progress. So.
Well, I think a lot of people who listen to this are either writing books or they've written a book. And for anyone who's ever published a book, you know that the book has its own trajectory, its own life force, its own energy. And so 5 years, that's about how long it took to write Winds of Spirit. Hopefully my next book is going to only take, a year and a half, because I've learned now how to write a book and, how readers want to read a book and all of that. So as you were writing, what came up for you as you were writing? What did you learn? What did you learn about yourself as a writer?
Well, I learned that it was just a new way of being, and I totally had to separate myself from my practice and my life. I had to get into my own space and just write. It was just really, really strange, but that's what you have to do. So, and then I could just take all those thoughts together and put them into a book form. So it was really exciting.
That's great. My editor calls that butt in seat. And
Yes.
I'm working with other people, like I've been doing this writing, accountability groups. And it's been really interesting because, there's a difference between writing a book and writing from a journal prompt and writing, your life's work, and then being able to take those clients' stories. So tell us, what have your clients taught you and how have they informed this book? Because 37 years is a very long time to be in practice with clients. So you've probably seen some people who have healed and people who haven't healed over the years. And what have you learned about that?
Well, I've learned, number one, it was not my responsibility.
That's
So,
great.
that's one thing that so many healers have to learn, that that's not their responsibility for when people heal or don't heal. The other thing that I learned is it really is a matter of all the conflicts that people have. They conflicts are really they are challenges, issues, and conflicts which can be dealt with or not. So most of us just put on a happy mask. We go to work, we put on a happy mask, and how are you doing today? And that's not the issue. We have to go to the deep within to figure out what's going on and fix what needs to be fixed. So that's what I learned. So sometimes we don't know what our challenges are. Sometimes they're genetic, or they can be environmental or chemical, but we can bring that to the light. We can bring light to those things and we can fix them. So.
What I found interesting in your book was the how you went to the masculine and the feminine archetypes for information. And the Swami that I work with says that almost all of our root dilemmas can either go back to our mother or to our father. You know, obstacles, I think our mother, and financial or father. So I never get that quite straight. But so when you take it back to the divine masculine and the divine feminine, what have you learned, and how did you come up with this idea for classification?
Well, I found that masculine is, well, the patriarchy has been in control of everything forever, right? It's been in control of all of our, it's been in control of our health, it's been in control of our money, it's been in control of everything. And we've just got to bring it into, how am I going to say that? We suppressed the divine feminine for centuries, and now it's just time to bring her out and to allow that to happen. And we each have masculine and feminine within us. We do. And just like we have in and out and up and down and light and dark, we have male and female. And it's kind of like same ends of the stick, male on one side, female on the other. We each have masculine and feminine within. And so some of us more masculine, some of us more feminine, but we've got to bring the divine feminine in. So the divine feminine looks kind of like this. You've got to be open to receive, feeling more and listening more from the heart, nurturing, healing, gentle, vulnerable, flexible, listening to all those messages. And then we've got to go and bring in the divine masculine, which is it's what we do. So the divine masculine communicates with openness and desire, and desires self-growth and beauty and protection and adventure, and has strength and courage. So it's blending all of that into which way, well-being and wholeness is created by all those things being together. So.
That's interesting, because when you were talking about it, I was thinking, well, okay, the feminine, she's open to her intuition, she's open to listening to what her body's saying, but then the masculine is going to call the doctor, make the appointments, get in the car, drive down there, get the money to pay for it, and get the insurance. And so are you telling me that that's not how you're perceiving it, or?
That's how I perceive it. Yes, that's how I perceive it. So well-being and wholeness is created by just bringing both of those into balance.
I like that.
Yeah.
So what would somebody learn if they picked up your book?
Well, they'd learn about the different conflicts. They'd learn about the masculine and feminine, and then how each of us is, how each of those things is related to an element. So fire is fire, water, air, earth. So then each of those is related to a planet. It's just kind of a way of pulling it all together so that you understand how the different problems occur in your life. So I'm just trying to, so for example, if you have, I'm going to just read a little bit from the book. Okay.
That's fine.
So,
I have a foot problem. How would that all come out?
well, a foot problem has to do with Neptune. So it has to do with your feet are kind of your flippers. And so Neptune has to do with just being interconnected and being in connection with the earth and all of, and if you're not, then you can develop problems with dementia. So that would be a problem. And also with psychosis or other problems like that. And also, um, I'm trying to think. I'm I'm blanking, but
That's okay. We can cut that.
that's why. But it's just a foot problem is just related to that. If you're closer to the earth, if you really spend more time with the earth and with the water, it's just a really good way of dealing with it. Um, and you also need to just make sure that you are um, looking at your spiritual aspects as well as your emotional and your relational and uh, your physical, and all of those things just work together.
So how would I, so you're going to read from the book, but we can do that in a minute. So tell me, it's funny you're saying, oh, it's about your connection to nature, which is really funny because when there was a foot illness, all of a sudden the daily wind walks stopped because, it just was too painful at the end of every walk. So like, it was more of a like sitting, looking at nature type of a summer than an actual physical get out on the trail type of summer. And so it's kind of interesting that, and it may mean taking, your nature to a deeper level. So you were going to read us something out of your book. Why don't you go ahead and do that?
I will do that. So we have, like I said, conflicts and challenges that we have to deal with. But when we deal with them, making a positive choice is an emboldened, assertive act. Increasing awareness and learning about the power within to choose a new path with better personal outcomes is empowering, energizing, and emphatic. Speaking up and telling others what is wanted or needed is brave and courageous. Setting boundaries for time and energy is firm and insistent. Dealing with what is not working in life openly and despite fear is a decidedly aggressive act. So that's what we need to do. So,
That's interesting that it's an aggressive act. How so?
well, it just is aggressive because, you know, aggressive in the way that you can't just set aside, you can't talk about it without talking with aggression, not working things out. You have to do it without fear. You have to do it without angst. You have to just really just get out there and say what you need to say to somebody else.
Well, because I mean, typically we think of the, in our culture as aggression as a more of a negative quality. And
Right.
so is that on the more masculine side of your
Yes, it
masculine
is.
feminine? So that you're taking them out of the qualitative of that's a
Mhm.
bad, that's a not a good quality for a woman or
Well,
male.
but it is a good quality for a woman, and we don't do it often enough. And so that's where, I think men maybe would be more aggressive. They would be more willing to tell you what's going on, but a woman maybe would not be so likely to do that. So it's really a positive, despite fear, you have to be aggressive when you're expressing what needs to be changed in your life.
So, do you have exercises in your book to teach us how to be more authoritative and like demonstrative? Like one of the things that I know people are really challenged with is that our healthcare system seems to be broken. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
you really have to advocate for your health these days. So, does your book address issues about
Well,
how to
it
advocate?
does. Every chapter has a a spiritual thing you can do, a emotional thing you can do, a relational thing you can do, environmental, and a genetic thing that you can do. So you can get all of those things done for each of those um, problems that you have.
Well, we got a cat here. We like
Yes,
cats.
we
My cat's,
do. My
oh,
cat just showed up on my lap.
that's funny. Where's Sami? Now, Sami, there's another cat here. You better hurry up.
Better hurry.
What would be an example of something we could do to alternate our genetics?
Um, well, there's a couple of different things. We can go and get our genetics tested.
Okay.
Okay, we can just do that. You can get over, I know the company that I use tests over 700 different SNPs. So I know there's 15,000, but this one, 700 is a good synopsis of what's going on there.
Is
And
that the synopsis is a sniff?
a SNP is a single nucleotide polymorphism that
Now we're getting
you
into the
have.
science. This is good.
So you can look at each of those SNPs and determine what you can do. So, for example, you can have a COMPT that you have several of them, and you can take all of the different SNPs and you can look at which ones are working and which ones aren't, and whether or not you need to do something about it. For example, with SNPs, with COMT, you need minerals, and especially iodine and thyroid issues. If you have, I don't know if it tells you that in the book or not, but if you have the SNPs associated with the energy production, then you need to take nutrients for energy. So if you have the SNPs associated with the VDR, which is vitamin D, then you need to take vitamin D and maybe vitamin A and K along with it to make the vitamin D work better for you. And vitamin D goes into all the different SNPs that make all of the different wheels turn. That polymorphism that I'm sorry, the SNPs. I'm trying to talk about it without using the big words, but
Yeah, that's fine. I think it gives the listeners a really an idea of like what it gives me an idea is that it's not just enough anymore to go to the chiropractor or the nutritionalist without knowing that there's a combined set of energy tools, scientific discoveries. And, a lot of times I see where people get really ill and they go, I'm going to do it all energetically, which is an absolutely perfectly divine choice. And I know other shamanic people who, as soon as they had, as soon as they were diagnosed with a cancer, they ran to the surgeon, got it removed, and did all of those other techniques. So is that kind of what you're
that's
saying
what
here in
I'm
this book?
saying. Yeah, and also it really is what I'm saying, because you've got to look at the entire team of people that you are dealing with, and that would be, the medical doctor, but also your chiropractor, your nutritionist, your genetic person, your hairdresser. That person is important to you too. So it really makes a difference who you have in your team of people that help you. So
So does your book help us organize our team?
yeah, it does. It talks about a team of um, people who work with you. So actually, that's at the end of the book, kind of, that you have to have a team of people to organize your life. So
So I was really fascinated about the the way that you've organized this book, by the archetypes and by, like what that means. So tell us a little bit more about the fire archetype, for example.
for the fire archetype, what we've got is, fire represents combustion and kindling and ignition and inspiration and destructive burning and healthy burning and brilliance and luminosity and performing to exceedingly well and to dismiss from a position. So it can result in lots of things. So, for example, with Mars, Mars has to do with courage and self-confidence. And if you don't have courage and self-confidence, then you will have all of these different challenges that we were talking about. But in the chapter, I talk about having a cold or having the flu and what you can do about it. But if you don't do something about those things, then you can develop stress, and stress will lead to death if you're not careful. So it can really impact you. Now, the sun, which is also a SNP associated with fire, a archetype related to fire, is authentic self-expression. So if you're authentic, if you show yourself to the world, then you're healthy. But if you're not, then you're more likely to develop a seeing problem or a heart problem.
Hmm.
If you have, and then Jupiter is the last fire sign, and it has to do with expansion and soul growth. And so if we have such a problem with obesity in this country. That's the big thing that we have trouble with. And so many people want to be larger in some way, and they can't. So they are, well, it can be food as well, but it can be that you really just want to be more expansive and grow your soul. Also, that can relate to your hips as well as your the growth of cancer. So it can be a real big problem. Now, and then I can go on. Water signs, for example, they have to do with emotions. That's the thing. We have rain and ice and steam and streams and lakes and seas, but they relate to emotions. So we can be intuitive, reflective, transcendent, sensitive, mysterious, and refreshing. But we can also be moody, and we can act like a victim, and revenge and destruction and hypersensitivity. So that those SNPs relate to the moon, which is a big one for relating to, for it has to do if you can't nurture, or if you are not supported in the way that you nurture and reflect, then you are more likely to develop problems with female organs, for example, the breasts or the uterus. Also, it can do with the mouth and the stomach and the bladder.
So, do you think that every single illness that we come in contact with is a relationship to some kind of a challenge or obstacle in our lives? Or are sometimes, what about the karmic ones? The person who gets cancer or a bladder infection because they have a lesson to learn? Or do you still think that goes back to one of these archetypes?
I think it goes back to the archetype, but it has to do with the ancestral piece of it. So
Okay.
it would do with the genetic piece. So you can have the ancestral things that get carried forward and get transferred into you. So it can be it can show up that way.
Hmm.
So
Why don't do you have your book handy there to show the readers your book?
yeah, there it is. Can you
I like
see
the
it?
cover. I like the
Yeah.
colors. What is it? Is there a reason you picked that orangey color?
Well, I didn't pick it. I saw it, and I had Ishananda. She drew the cover for me, and then the company did the body messengers, and I thought, oh, that turned out pretty well.
Oh yeah, I
So
like that. I like that. And it's on your website or on Amazon, or where can people get your book?
it's on my website, and also I can pass on any books to anybody, and they can leave a message on my website if they would like one. And it is on Amazon, so
Okay,
that is another place that they can get it.
that's awesome. And so leave us with a thought about well-being and health.
A thought about well-being and health. We create, well, I'm thinking about that. We have to take everything in. We have to allow the feminine to sit and reflect with everything that comes into our lives, and then we can expand and be more expansive, and I think that we have to symptoms are a pathway to transformation and healing. So that's what I think we have to be. We have to be more and have more. We have to be more and have more divine feminine and hear more of what is happening within. I'm sorry, I'm so slow sometimes, but it just some of those questions just catch me off guard.
That's all right. The more we interview as authors, the more we just, they pop out our tongue. One time I heard, I don't know, this woman, she's a best-selling author, speak, and I thought, like, wow, she's like a violinist, and I'm like a bad ukulele player when I learned to speak about these things. I think that it's a big concept. It's a big field. It's a lot of information that you've gathered over these 37 years and plus, and that you've put it into a format that really is accessible. I mean, that's what I got from it. Wow, this is really accessible, and it really gives me a way of looking at this in a new point of view. And one thing you said was that we have to embrace more of our divine feminine, but wouldn't we have to also embrace our divine masculine?
Some of us do. Some of us have to embrace both of those. They have to embrace the divine feminine to listen within, and the divine masculine to express what we need to express. And so some of us don't express what we need to express the way we should. I think I've probably been too much masculine in my life, so I don't have some of those problems, but I see that there are more women who do have those problems that they're not willing to express.
Well, and that comes with 37 years of experience and seeing patients and doing all of that. So I'm going to take your word for that. Everyone, I suggest that you order this book and check it out. I mean, we're in some really choppy times here. And so any tool that we can have that can start to combine the mental with the emotional and the physical and the spiritual in terms of symptoms and becoming better health, vehicles for health, I totally, fully embrace.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Valorie, for being here, and I'm wishing you much success as you trudge this happy road of, now that you finished the book, now you have to get out and talk about.
I have to talk to people.
I know. I was saying to the agent today, it was like, I had this vision in my mind. Okay, I'm a Hay House author. I'm gonna be famous now, and that was my first disappointment as an author, was that no, I spent 5 or 6 years writing a book, and now I was going to have to spend another 5 or 6 years finding a tribe and marketing the book. So for all of you out there who are on this road with us of authorship, know that you have to find the joy in the moments of each step of it. Like, when you got that book in your hand, right? How did that feel, Valorie?
Oh, it felt great. It felt wonderful. Yeah.
I remember the night that the UPS driver came at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and I was in my pajamas with the books. I said, "Come in, please, and take my picture." I wanted some proof that I had actually accomplished this. So for all of you out there who are still in the process of working towards this accomplishment, keep going. It's really worth every single step of the discovery process. And then, check out this book if you can't get to the writing, because I'm sure she's got, which chapter will we look at on our stagnant archetype here?
Which one?
If we were like getting to the symptom of not even being able to sit down to put the butt in the seat to write, you got some guidance on that?
That one, I don't think it's probably just that it's probably a combination of things depending on which problem you have. So I don't think it talks about that. I know that Saturn is finding the right balance of what is essential for you. So that would be really what matters the most. So
I like that. So we'll leave you with Saturn and what's essential for you. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
thank you so much for letting me be here.